as was extensively spoken out, the Shita of which is quoted in the Beis Yosef in Orach Chaim, Siman Tov Kuf Nun, that Asarah b'Tevis b'Shem Avudram, which has become a Shita Meforsemes Ad Ma'od, that if Asarah b'Tevis would fall on Shabbos, in contrast to other Tanesim, which when they fall on Shabbos, we postpone it to Sunday. That means obviously not besides Yom Kippur, when it falls on Shabbos, there's no choice, we fast on Shabbos. However, Tisha B'Av and Shabbos B'Tammuz as an example, when they fall on Shabbos, we push it off and we postpone it to Sunday. However, the Avodram says, and it's quoted in some Achronim, that might be the simple reason why the calendar, one of the reasons, the calendar, our Luach, was set up originally that Asarah b'Tevis does not fall on Shabbos, is in order to avoid this conflict. Because the Avodram, quoting a pasuk in Yecheskel, says that Asarah b'Tevis shachal b'Shabbos, we would fast on Shabbos and it would not be postponed to Sunday. And which we'll have to see, obviously, and I'm sure everyone went through all the Makairis and the reasons behind that. But the Avodram tells us that we would fast on Shabbos. It happens to be that's not really the reason. Asarah b'Tevis doesn't fall on Shabbos according to our calendar. It's more complicated. It has to do with the rule of Loi Adu Rosh, that Rosh Hashanah cannot fall on Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. And somehow, if Asarah b'Tevis, in the big picture of the calendar, would fall on Shabbos, that would somehow trigger a chain reaction, which would make Rosh Hashanah fall on Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. But it could be part of the mix that was the reason Asarah b'Tevis does not fall on Shabbos. However, if the Beis Yosef in Siman Tov Kuf Nun, who's really quoting the Torah, argues on the Avodram, and he says that even if Asarah b'Tevis would fall on Shabbos, the halacha would be that we would postpone it to Sunday, and it would be similar to other Tanesim. And the Beis Yosef seems to disagree in principle with the Avodram, which is really theoretical in our times, because Asarah b'Tevis does not fall on Shabbos. However, the Beis Yosef argues, and he says, Loi motzinu, I've got the Lashon exactly, Loi yodati minayin loi. What would be the rationale and the reasoning? But that's not the reasoning the Beis Yosef could have possibly agreed. He says, Loi yodati minayin loi. I don't really find a source. Such a monumental and earth-shattering chiddush of the Avodram needs a makar in Chazal. So the Beis Yosef argues, and he says he hasn't found a makar in Chazal for the chiddush of the Avodram. So again, the Avodram holds if Asarah b'Tevis would fall on Shabbos, we would fast on Shabbos. But if Asarah b'Tevis, but Mashenkein, in contrast, other Tanesim, for example, Shabbos B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, we would not fast on Shabbos and we postpone it to Sunday. And the Beis Yosef seems to agree, possibly in the Lumdis, which whatever it may be, but the Beis Yosef disagrees in the Minayin Loi. Where is the source for this Torah? In Hilchis Tainus, the Orsa Meach and Hilchis Tainus, Perik Hey, Hilchis Tainus Halacha Vav, which at the latter part of the Shir will go into the greater length of the original Chiddush of the Orsa Meach. But in parentheses, a small little one-line parenthesis, the Orsa Meach says that he thinks he found a source in Chazal, without quoting this Beis Yosef. He found a source in Chazal for the Avodram. The Gemara Masechtas Eruvin, which Hagoyin Reb Shlomo just spoke out on Masechtas Eruvin, Daf Mem Amid Beis, the Gemara on the bottom of the Amud clears a question, which you just went through all the Makairis, but the one line of the Gemara, Iboyalon Bar Beirav, the Yosef Betanisa B'Mailei Shapsa. If someone accepted upon himself a tainus on Erev Shabbos, Ma'ula Shlume, could he finish off the tainus and enter into Shabbos while he's fasting? Which the Gemara later on in Malaf Amid Beis says that the reason we would think that you should not finish off the tainus at the end of Shabbos and going into Shabbos is because shelo yikones l'Shabbos kishehu me'una. There is some sort of a hard feeling, and it's not a comfortable feeling, of even eating after you fasted or entering to Shabbos at the end of a fast. So you have the last gasps of the tainus enters into Shabbos. So the Gemara goes into a whole question, and the Gemara spends a plot of Gemara trying to settle this question. That if someone has fasting on Erev Shabbos, is he mashlim the tainus? So Reb Meir Simcha poses a question. Why, I'm just ad-libbing it into the Reb Meir Simcha. Why does the Gemara only pose this question on somebody who was mekabel tainus? Why does it only when we're mekabel tainus? Why does the Gemara not talk about a tainus tzibur? That would be a more pertinent question, because that's pertinent for everybody in Klal Yisrael. So when a tainus tzibur would fall on Friday, would we finish the tainus or would we not finish the tainus entering into Shabbos? Why does the Gemara localize the question? And the Gemara seems to narrow the question to Rav, the Mesif Tanisa, which is talking about a singular private person who was makabel a tainus. It would have been a much broader question, and it would have been a more pertinent question and a more realistic question on somebody, the whole Klal Yisrael for tainus tzibur. So Meir Simcha explains, and he says that this tainus, the only time this Gemara was written when we already understood the luach. This Gemara was not written when they were makadosh the Chadashim Beria. So they were makadosh the Chadashim Beria ended, which is a whole sugya for itself, that there are many Gemaras which are post the Zman of Kiddush Beria, and we were makadosh al Yidei the luach. So Meir Simcha, therefore, the only tainus of the Tanisei Tzibur, which actually can fall on Erev Shabbos, is Asarah b'Teves. Tisha B'Av, Shivasa b'Tammuz do not fall on Erev Shabbos. So the only tainus which falls on Erev Shabbos, and there is such a feasibility and possibility, is the tainus of Asarah b'Teves, as it does this year, where it falls on Erev Shabbos. With this year's calendar is a very quirky calendar, as one would say, and there's a lot of interesting things that are falling out. One of them is Asarah b'Teves falls on Erev Shabbos. So the only tainus of the tzibur that the Gemara would have been able to pose this question is the tainus of Asarah b'Teves. Zok Meir Simcha, if you hold like the Avud Ram, and if Asarah b'Teves would fall on Shabbos, you'd even fast on Shabbos. Then, of course, if Asarah b'Teves falls on Friday, and there's a little inkling of a problem of Shabbos to finish off the tainus entering into Shabbos, kishehu me'una, so then, Zok Meir Simcha, according to the Avud Ram, it would go without saying that, of course, you would be able to enter into Shabbos, kishehu me'una. If on Shabbos itself it would fall, you would be able to fast. So, of course, you'd be able to fast entering into Shabbos. Therefore, the Gemara did not have a case in point to say a tainus tzibur that falls on Friday. That's true. The Gemara would have had the question if it would be Shavasa B'Tammuz or Tisha B'Av. But since the only tainus which actually can fall on Erev Shabbos is Asarah b'Teves, so that's a moot point, because of course you would fast on Friday, because if you could fast on Shabbos, you could fast on Friday. So Meir Simcha, therefore the Gemara had no choice, and it had to pose the question on a tainus yachid of a bar beirav that was makabel time. And therefore, explains Reb Meir Simcha, the Gemara posed this question on a tainus yachid. So he says, and he finishes off in the parenthesis, Vizu Mekar, this might possibly be the source for the Avud Ram. The mere fact that the Gemara does not pose the question on a tainus tzibur, which would have meant Asarah b'Teves, is proof positive that Asarah b'Teves shechal b'Shabbos, you would fast on Shabbos. So this would answer the ha'ara of the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef asked on the on the Avodram, where's the Makar? This seems to be a Makar, Mesechtes Erevin, Taf Mem Amid Beis. So if that's true, Dr. Meir Simcha, this is a steadfast proof for the Shita of the Avodram. So now we come back. It's therefore a question on the Beis Yosef. According to the Beis Yosef, that Asarah B'Tevis is equal to other Tanes. And just like it's Chal on Shabbos, it would be postponed to Sunday, the Gemara could have had the liberty to pose this question even on Asarah B'Tevis. So what's the reason the Gemara didn't? So that's a kasha on the Beis Yosef. Now the thought why the Beis Yosef could have said, why wouldn't the Gemara say this question on Asarah B'Tevis? So what was he do? This raya, it seems to be a very good raya to the shita of the Avodram. Gevaldik ha'ara, one line, just the ha'ara of Ramei Simcha. We could really finish the shir just here for the ha'ara of Ramei Simcha. But ein beis medrash b'lei chiddush, and we'd like to add and to maybe say a teretz of why the Beis Yosef would not agree to this raya. In order to do this, we have to go back to, I'm sure, what everybody heard this week, to the great ha'ara in the Hezber of the Avodram, which is said over in the yeshivas in the name of Reb Chaim, and it's quoted in the Chedushei Agrach, the Inyan Asarah B'Tevis, and in the Chedushim on Rosh Hashanah, Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis. But it's also in the Minchas Chinuch, in a little bit of a different nusach, but both are Shnei Nevi'im Misnabim B'Signon Echad. We know that there is I would say the question this way, and I'll pose the question in this way, and I'll try to say it in a very strong way. You know, we know when Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, it's postponed to Sunday. When Shavasa B'Tammuz falls on Shabbos, it's postponed to Sunday. I want to give you some earth-shattering news. Shavasa B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av never fall on Shabbos. It's a mistake. It's not true. Everyone's making a big mistake. Shavasa B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av never fall on Shabbos. What do you mean? Take out a calendar. You'll see that many times Shavasa B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av do fall on Shabbos. Dr. Reb Chaim in the Minchas Chinuch. But Emes, there's a great question. When Tisha B'Av and Shavasa B'Tammuz fall on Shabbos, you have Shabbos, and there's a collision. There's a mitzvah. Let's call it a mitzvah midivrei neviim, to eat on Shabbos. It's a posik in Navi, Oz Tisaneg al Hashem. It happens to be parenthetically, the Rashba holds that there is a mitzvah deraisa to eat on Shabbos and not fast. Most Rishonim hold it's a mitzvah derabanan of Oz Tisaneg al Hashem. There's also, not derabanan, divrei neviim. There's also a divrei neviim to fast on these tanesim of Tisha B'Av, Shavas B'Tammuz, and Asarah B'Tevis. So now you have a collision. And we have a question. What should we do? And which chiyuv overpowers the other? They are both, let's accept for the question of this year, that both chiyuvim are equal. There's a mitzvah to eat, midivrei neviim, and there's a mitzvah to fast, midivrei neviim. Which one should you do? Should you fast or should you eat? Well, the usual rule in Torah is there's rules. Asay is derech lois asay. Asay is not derech lois sheish meikares. What happens when you have two equal asays which collide with each other? The halacha usually would be asay against an asay is shev v'al taisa odev. It's a Gemara Mesechtes Yevamis daf hey amar aleph. So that means if you have two asays, one asay tells you to do something, and one asay tells you not to do something. Not doing overpowers the doing. Not because it's stronger, it's just we would rather be sheval tais. Dr. Reb Chaim, therefore, if I have an assay of eating on Shabbos, and I have a say not to eat, what should the rule be? I would venture to say that the rule would be don't eat. So if a tainus falls on Shabbos, the halacha should be Shabbos is strong and tainus is strong. But there's a collision, and the collision should tell us don't eat. So actually, when a tainus falls on Shabbos, we should not eat. So therefore, the halacha would be you don't eat. So why is the halacha when Shavasa B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, we push it off to Sunday Why should we push it off? We're religious Jews. There are rules, the rule of law. And the rule of law is when there's an asay against an asay, so we go sheval taisa. So sheval taisa is odiv, and therefore what do we do? What do we do? Sheval taisa odiv. We say that the halacha is you fast. So why is the halacha we don't fast and we push it to Sunday? Zok Chaim, if you look in the Navi in Zechariah, it never says you have to fast on Tisha B'Av. It never says you have to fast on Shabbos B'Tammuz. It says you have to fast Tzayim HaRavi v'Tzayim HaChamishi. You have to fast once in the fourth month and once in the fifth month. The fourth month is Tammuz, the fifth month is Av. So therefore the Chazal, the Navi says you have to fast one of them. Chazal's one day in Tammuz, one day in Av. The Chazal said the most opportune and ideal day to fast is Shabbos B'Tammuz or Tisha B'Av. But really, any day would be good because it would fit the rule of the Navi that tells us to fast once in Av and once in Tammuz. So therefore, Zok Chaim, we had an option. Originally, in the great vision of the Chazal of the Luach, when they stelled avek the Luach, and they said, and the Navi said, you have to fast in Av and Tammuz. So therefore, you should fast on Tisha B'Av and Shabbos B'Tammuz. But on the year when the Tainus Tisha B'Av, when the day Tisha B'Av, the ninth day of Av or the seventh day of Tammuz falls on Shabbos, originally they said you should fast. The fast day will be on Sunday and not on Shabbos. So it's not the pshat, it fell on Shabbos and we postpone it to Sunday. No. We don't postpone it. It's not being postponed. It never fell on Shabbos. And originally, the original intent was for it to be on Sunday in such a case. So therefore, there's no collision. If there would be a collision between Tisha B'Av and Shabbos, we would actually fast on Shabbos. The reason we don't fast is because there's no collision. So therefore, you could have your cake and eat it too. You could eat on Shabbos and you could fast on Sunday because Sunday is the real bona fide fast of Tisha B'Av, and it's taking place on Sunday. Shabbos is not the Tainus, and Sunday is the Tainus. So therefore, we fast on Sunday, not on Shabbos. But Lu Yitzuyer, you would fast on Shabbos. The Shabbos fast and the Sunday fast would coincide. Shabbos and the fast would coincide on Shabbos. The halacha would be the fast would overpower the Shabbos because, as we said before, Sheval Tais is other. The only reason they don't, we say we eat and we don't fast is because lechatchila it's Sunday. Zok Chaim, that's what the Avodram is saying. The Avodram says Asarah b'Tevis. It says in Yechezkel be'etzem hayoim hazeh. Or there it doesn't say it's tied to the Chodesh. So there, what is it tied to? It's tied to the day itself. Or if it's tied to the day itself, I don't have the option to push it off to Sunday. If I don't have the option to say that lechatchila was set up for Sunday. Therefore, the only thing that would work would for the Shabbos to be doicha the fast. Shabbos is not doicha the fast. Therefore, if Asarah b'Tevis would fall on Shabbos, I would actually fast on Shabbos. That's the hezber of the Avodram. Not that Asarah b'Tevis is more powerful than Tisha B'Av or Shabbos B'Tammuz. No, they're both equal, possibly. Just Tisha B'Av and Shabbos B'Tammuz have the option of being lechatchila originally settled and set on Sunday because of the way the Navi set the Tainus up. Tzayim HaRavi v'Tzayim HaChamishi. Mashenkein Asarah b'Tevis doesn't have that liberty and freedom. Therefore, if it would fall on Shabbos, it would revert back to the Sheval Taisa rule. And if it falls back to the Sheval Taisa rule, the rule would be that we would fast and not eat. Gewaldig in the Welt, to be able to explain, this is the svara of a Reb Chaim and the Minchas Chinuch of what would be the svara of the Avodram. Al Korchoch, the Beis Yosef agrees in principle. Those of us who are Talmidim of the Torah of Reb Chaim, say, of course, the Beis Yosef agrees to this, and he agrees that the Yesod of Tanesim would not be pushed off, and if there would be a collision Shabbos and the Tainus, we would fast and we would not eat on Shabbos. But what lechatchila, it was pushed off to Sunday. Kenira, the Beis Yosef disagrees in regards to Asarah b'Teves, and he holds Asarah b'Teves is equal to other Tanesim. And lechatchila, they could have fasted on Sunday, and they could have set it up to Sunday, not on Shabbos. He disagrees with that knech, with that little nuance of the base of the Avudram, that Asarah b'Teves is different. So therefore, if Lu Yitzuyer Asarah b'Teves would be on Shabbos, it would be lechatchila nikva and would have been on Sunday, just like Tisha B'Av and Shavasa B'Tam. But if Lu Yitzuyer, any tainus, would fall on Shabbos, what would the rule be? The tainus would overrule Sunday. Let's think for a second. When a tainus falls on Friday, the tainus is on Friday. So what do you want to say? That now there's a steer at the end of the tainus between Shabbos and the tainus. The rule is Shabbos is never doicha the tainus. The tainus is always doicha Shabbos. The only reason we push it to, we say it on Sunday is because then Shabbos is not the tainus. But if theoretically speaking, the tainus would be on Shabbos, so then the halacha would be we would fast on Shabbos. When the tainus falls on Friday, it falls on Friday. And therefore, the end of the tainus encroaches onto Shabbos. You can't say, don't fast then, because tainus overrides Shabbos. The only time tainus doesn't override Shabbos is when it doesn't become the tainus. And lechatchila, it was nikva, it was settled on the calendar, and that's when it was on Sunday. But when the tainus falls on Friday and it encroaches into Shabbos, then the tainus overrides the Shabbos. Therefore, the Beis Yosef holds there's no raya of Rav Meir Simcha's raya. Over here, even if Asarah b'Teves would be the regular rule of every Tanesim, a tainus tzibur, you'd be able to fast on Shabbos, and therefore it would override it. Now, could be possibly, that's the Gemara's question. What about a tainus that you were makabel on yourself? A tainus that when you makabel on yourself, you might not be able to make a tainus override Shabbos, because that you don't have the power. Only a tainus of Divrei Nevi'im has that power, and therefore it would be that halacha. I just want to add, there's a very similar halacha which comes out from this. When Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, Tisha B'Av is pushed off to Sunday. You eat. So if Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, so then the halacha would be that when Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, Shabbos is doiche the Tisha B'Av. But the Ramah Paskins in Hilchas Tisha B'Av, that Erev Tisha B'Av, Dr. Ramah, on Shabbos late afternoon, we don't learn Pirkei Avos. Why don't we learn Pirkei Avos? Because Ein Loindim be'erev Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, Erev Tisha B'Av, there's an Isser to learn Talmud Torah. So if there's an Isser to learn Talmud Torah, you're not, what, it's not on? There's an Isser to learn Talmud Torah on Tisha B'Av, on Erev Tisha B'Av. So Dr. Ramah, if there's an Isser to learn Torah on Erev Tisha B'Av, so therefore Shabbos late afternoon, you don't learn Pirkei Avos. So the Meforshim ask on the Ramah, I don't understand. Shabbos is such a powerhouse, it pushes off Tisha B'Av. So and therefore you're allowed to eat. It's a very stringent rule that you're not allowed to eat on Tisha B'Av, but Shabbos overpowers it. Learning on Tisha B'Av is a very small halacha compared to the great halacha that there is about eating on Tisha B'Av. If Shabbos has the power to overpower Hilchas Achila on Tisha B'Av and we don't fast, then why, of course, don't we fast on, why would we not be able to learn Erev Tisha B'Av in the afternoon? If it's Erev Tisha B'Av in the late afternoon, we should be able to fast. We should be able to learn. If Shabbos is doicha the Isser of fasting, it should definitely be doicha the Isser of learning Torah. Lefit Varenu, according to what we said, in the understanding of Reb Chaim, it's miyushim. Because the halacha would be a tainus. A Shabbos doesn't push off the tainus. Shabbos is a halacha that Shabbos and the tainus don't coincide because lechatchil it's put to Sunday. But if they would collide, possibly Shaval Tais is other. Im Kain, Erev Tisha B'Av is still Shabbos. Even though Shabbos is not Tisha B'Av, it's Sunday. But you can't change the Erev Tisha B'Av. So the Erev Tisha B'Av remains steadfast on Shabbos. And therefore the halacha would be that you cannot fast. You cannot fast on that halacha. She say one more addendum. There's a great controversy when Tisha B'Av is Chal b'Shabbos and we fast Sunday. When do you make Havdalah? Our minig is we make Havdalah b'soif hayoim of Sunday. Motzei the tainus is when we make Havdalah, which is really the Ramban and Sefer Torah Sa'adam tells us that this is a gavaldik, a great chidush, because once Sunday night comes, it's a b'diavad Havdalah, but we have no choice, and therefore what do? We make Havdalah Sunday night. The Torah brings b'shem ha'goinim that they said a great eitzah. Let's make Havdalah mi ba'oid yoim of Shabbos. We know the halach is just like you could make Kiddush before Shabbos. You could make Havdalah on Shabbos after Plag HaMincha. So they say, have a good eitzah. Why do we have to make a b'diavad Havdalah Sunday night? Make Havdalah an hour before Shkia on Shabbos. And that way we're making a lechatchila halacha of Havdalah, which would take place on Shabbos afternoon. So the Torah answers and he says, no. Once you would make Havdalah on Shabbos, you would be welcoming in the Tisha B'Av. And since you're welcoming in the coming Tisha B'Av, so the halacha would be, you'd be having to bring Tisha B'Av and Shabbos. You'd have to fast on Shabbos. That we don't want you to do. We don't want you to fast on Shabbos. You're going to create problems. So therefore, we push it off to Sunday night. I have a great question. When someone makes Havdalah on Shabbos afternoon on a regular Shabbos, could he go for a ride in his car? Could he start cooking? Obviously not. It's just a mechanism of Havdalah. Even though it's Shabbos, you could make Havdalah on Shabbos. So let's say you accepted upon yourself the Tisha B'Av that's coming Matzah Shabbos onto Shabbos. It's still Shabbos. Shabbos pushes off Tisha B'Av. What's the Torah's question? Let it be. I'm bringing on Sunday's Tisha B'Av onto Shabbos. But Shabbos pushed away the bona fide Tisha B'Av. Why would Shabbos not push away the Sunday Tisha B'Av, which I'm bringing on Shabbos? So what's the Torah's question? Even if it's true, I accepted the coming Tisha B'Av on myself. But Shabbos is such a superpower, it pushes off the Sunday Tisha B'Av. If it pushes off the Shabbos Tisha B'Av, it should push off the Sunday Tisha B'Av. The Teretz says, no, the Torah is gewaldig in the Welt. The Torah is telling us Shabbos never pushes off Tisha B'Av. Shabbos falls on Shabbos and Tisha B'Av falls on Sunday. So they never collide. But if they would collide, what would the halacha be? Tisha B'Av would be Deicha Shabbos, just as we explained the Gemara Masechta Eruvin. If that's true, so then it's tremendous in the world. Or when I take on the Sunday Tisha B'Av onto Shabbos, then it's already a collision. If it's a collision, I would have to fast, because when Shabbos and Tisha B'Av coincide, the Tisha B'Av says Sheval Taisen and overpowers the Shabbos. Therefore, Zok the Torah, if you accept the Sunday Tisha B'Av onto Shabbos, the Isser of eating would overpower the Shabbos, and therefore it would be the halach. So it's not the. So that answers up the question what we asked in the Masechtas Eruvin, and that's the longest of why, even if you hold like the Avedram or you don't, this Shabbos would be this Friday when we fast into Shabbos. It's because the tainus is a legal tainus, and if the tainus is nimshach into Shabbos, so then whatever tam shehu. So then the tainus Sheval Taisa overpowers the Shabbos midin Sheval Taisa. both if you hold like the Avodram or if you hold like the Beis Yosef. And therefore the Gemara only posed this question when it came to a Tainus Yachid. I just can't go by this without answering. Right, it would be someone, we're going to come now to this question. I see somebody's asking the question, which you can't pass this by without it. We know there are kulas of a nitcha. That means when a tainus falls on Shabbos Tisha B'Av, when we push it to Sunday, there are halachas of kulas. There's a kula of a tainus. So then why would there not be a halacha? Why would there not be a halacha? Why would there be a halacha of a kula? Bishleim, if you learn not like Reb Chaim, and the halacha of the tainus falls on Shabbos, and it gets pushed off to Sunday, then we could understand a postponed tainus doesn't have the potency of a regular. But according to Reb Chaim, lechatchila, the tainus was on Sunday. So then why are there any leniencies in regards to a nitcha? And also, as someone pointed out, a bar mitzvah bacher would be an afghan, but let's leave it regarding this nitcha. So why, according to Reb Chaim, would there be a kula of a nitcha? So I want to tell you like this. At the beginning of Hilchos Rosh Hashanah, it says the halacha about Tzom Ged. At the end of Hilchos Rosh Hashanah, it tells us the halacha of Tzom Gedalia. We fast the day after Rosh Hashanah, commemorating the assassination of Gedalia ben Achik. So if he was, we commemorate that. Zokta Ture Zov B'Shem Poiskim, that every Tzom Gedalia is really a nitcha, and it has kulas of a nitcha, because Gedalia got assassinated on Rosh Hashanah, but they never wanted to make Rosh Hashanah fast day, so we commemorated, and the Chazal made the tainus on 2 days after Rosh Hashanah. That means that after the second day of Rosh Hashanah is when we fast. So in the Poiskim, therefore, it has every Tzom Gedalia has all the coolest, the leniencies of a nitcha. Freik the Tureis of, I don't understand. It's not a nitcha, because it was lechatchila made on that day. It was never a fast on Rosh Hashanah and it's pushed to Sunday. It was lechatchila made on the day after the second day of Rosh Hashanah. So how could it be comparable to when Tisha B'Av Chal on Shabbos and we fast on Sunday? The teretz is like this. There is the fast that has to be in the Chodesh of Av, and there's a fast that has to be in the Chodesh of Tammuz. And according to Reb Chaim, we fast when it comes out on Shabbos on Sunday, because you could fast any day in Av. But when is the most opportune day to fast in Av? The most ideal day is Tisha B'Av. That's why the Chazal said, when it's a regular year, you fast on Tisha B'Av. You know why Tisha B'Av is the most opportune day to fast? Because that's called the Yoim HaMe'ura. When a person fasts on the day that something happened, it has more power, it has more meaning, it has more rachum by the Eibishter. So therefore, the Yoim HaMe'ura is a tainus that's more connected to what happened. That's what Tzom Gedalia is, and that's what a nitcha is. A nitcha is not that it wasn't lechatchila on Sunday. There are kulas to a nitcha because you're not fasting on the day that the event happened. A tainus that you fast on the event has a certain potency and power. However, it's lechatchila on Sunday. Therefore, Tzom Gedalia, even though it's lechatchila, the original plan was it's always on the day after Rosh Hashanah, it still doesn't have that superpower of a tainus, and therefore there are leniencies. And so too on Tisha B'Av, that falls on Shabbos, where lechatchila, the original plan of the Chachomim and the Nevi'im was that it should be on. So this is what I think is the great understanding of Reb Chaim and the Minchas Chinuch, the Tisha B'Av and Shavuos B'Tammuz, and it's pushed through. So I want to explain now one more thing. But this is a Gavaldik alumnus, and I was Zoicha around 15 or 17 years ago. Someone called me with a Gavaldik Shaila. And I was Zoicha to talk this Shaila over with the Poisek Hadoyer, one of the Gavaldik Chachamim, the Baal Ma'adam Izmanim Shliter, Moshe Hagoyin, Moshe Shtemel. I called him on the telephone. There was someone who was a member of my shul who was flying back from Asia, either Hong Kong or Taiwan, whichever one it may be, and he was leaving the morning of Shivasar B'Tammuz, and he was going to fly towards the United States. And if he was going to fly towards the United States, I'm not a great bucky in the dateline, but I'm not going into dateline questions now. And he was going to fly and have to fast Shivasar B'Tammuz and almost have to fast another Shivasar B'Tammuz when he crosses over the dateline. So you would almost be fasting two Shivasar B'Tammuz consecutively. First Shivasar B'Tammuz when he leaves, and then he would be entering into a new Shivasar B'Tammuz. He called me up. Does he have to fast two Shivasar B'Tammuz? One and one. And he says, therefore, should you do that? Should you do that Tainus twice, Shivasar B'Tammuz and Shivasar? So I decided before I paskin for him the shaila, I'm not a placing. So I said, let me call Rav Moshe Shtember. I called Rav Moshe Shtember on the phone, and lo and behold, he answered the telephone. And he asked me my name. I asked him the shaila, he asked me my name. He said, someone's asking you the shaila. I said, someone's asking you the shaila. I said, are you a Rav? I said, yes. He said, so what do you think? He asked me, what do you think? So I said like this, and now tell me if you'll agree to agree to me. And I said, really, according to Reb Chaim, when Shivasar B'Tammuz is a regular weekday, Shivasar B'Tammuz, Soim HaRavi says you could fast one day in Tammuz. Let's say somebody decides, I don't want to fast Shivasar B'Tammuz. I'm going to fast on Yud Tammuz. And that way, I'll be Makayim the mitzvah of Nevi'im of fasting once in the Chodesh of Tammuz. He would accomplish his Divrei Nevi'im. But the Chazal said you have to fast on Shivasar. Really, when you fast one day in Tammuz, you were Yotzet Soim HaRavi. You're lacking the latter Chazal's din that said in Mesechus Rosh Hashanah that it should be done on Shivasar B'Tammuz. But actually, the din should be once you fast in Tammuz, you were Yotzet. Really, parenthetically, if someone didn't fast on Shivasar B'Tammuz because he was a chayla, he should really fast on Yud Ches or Yud Tes Tammuz, according to the din of Tzayim HaRavi. But the most opportune time to fast is Yud Zayin B'Tammuz. That means like this. There's not a din. Listen very carefully to what I'm saying. Shabbos, you're not allowed to do malacha. Pesach, you have to eat matzah the first day, night Pesach. The first day Sukkot, you're mechuyev the first day Sukkot to take a lulav. You're not mechuyev to fast Shivasar B'Tammuz. You're mechuyev to fast once in Tammuz on Shivasar B'Tammuz. The day of Shivasar B'Tammuz is not mechayev fasting. Tammuz is mechayev fasting. When do you have to fast in Tammuz? On Shivasar B'Tammuz. Lu Yitzur, I would have deja vu. And I would say, Shivasar B'Tammuz, and now there's another Shivasar B'Tammuz. And I fasted once on Shivasar B'Tammuz. So if I fasted, I need a drink. If I fasted once on Shivasar B'Tammuz, so then the halacha would be, I was Yotzei Shivasar B'Tammuz. If I was Yotzei Shivasar B'Tammuz, so then even if there's another Shivasar B'Tammuz, I was Yotzei Shivasar B'Tammuz again. Why was I Yotzei Shivasar B'Tammuz? I don't have to fast again because I already fasted in Tammuz on Shivasar B'Tammuz. So if I fasted once on Shivasar B'Tammuz, I don't have to fast again on Shivasar B'Tammuz. So therefore, the halacha would be that I don't have to fast on Shivasar B'Tammuz again because I fasted on Shivasar B'Tammuz. So since I fasted on Shivasar B'Tammuz, so I don't have to fast again on Shivasar B'Tammuz. So I asked this to Rav Moshe Shtember. I told this over to Rav Moshe. He said, I agree with you. And I think you're right. And you'd only have to fast one of the Shivasar B'Tammuz and not the other. So then he added an addendum, and I think he should fast the second Shivasar B'Tammuz, Imroiv Klal Yisrael. Since there are more Jews fasting on this side of the date line, then the other side of the date line, you'll have a more powerful tainus by fasting the second Shabbos. For that, you need a big gadol to be able to have that feel of fasting on the next. Im kain akler the shayla. What would be by Asarah b'tevis if you're traveling from the far east and coming over the date line? There, it's already a haloch in Asarah b'tevis according to the Avod Ram. So if you fasted Asarah b'tevis, you might have to fast again Asarah b'tevis. How far do you take the lumbus of the Avod Ram? What would the halacha be of the Avod Ram on Asarah b'tevis? I'm going to leave that for a thought for everybody. Would the halacha of Asarah b'tevis be this din, or that there you might have to fast both of them? Maybe this svara that I told over to Hagoyin Moshe Shlomo Shlita would be agreeable on Shavas B'Tammuz, would work on Shavas B'Tammuz, not Asar B'Tevis, but I think even on Asar B'Tevis, and that would have to be a lumdus that we'd all have to think of. So this is the first part of the shir of what I'm saying over on this inyan of this. I want to begin now with another shot of possibly, and it has to do with the beginning of that arsenal. But we'll preface it. I want to preface this remark with with a vart in this week's parasha. This week's parasha, the Torah tells us that when Yosef met Binyamin, his brother, so Yosef decided, Yosef hugged his brother, and it says, Vayefkal Tzavarav, Yosef cried on the shoulders of Binyamin, and Binyamin cried on the shoulders of Yosef. Rashi tells us Yosef cried because it was a crying. Zok Yosef cried, he was crying on the Beis HaMikdash that would eventually be built in the Chelkish of Binyamin, and it will be destroyed. And Binyamin was crying for the Mishkan that would be built in the Chelkish of Yosef. The Chassam Sofer in Torah's Moshe poses a great question. And the Chassam Sofer wants to know, according to the Gemara Masechtas Chulin, it also happens, it seems to be mashma, and it's a medrash in this week's parsha, that Tvoyach Tovach Ve'hochein took place Erev Shabbos. Afterwards, it became Shabbos. The others were Shomer the Shabbos. Avelus b'migdash is not doiche Shabbos. You're not allowed to have Avelus to cry for the Churban Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos. In Cain, how was Yosef crying on the shoulders of Binyamin before on Shabbos? If according to the chronology of the parsha, it comes out that this happened on Shabbos, Shabbos is Asar ba'Avelus of the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, how could they cry on Shabbos? So the Chassam Sofer poses this question. And I think it's brought in some of the droshes of the Chassam Sofer and others, but I was Nesaira to this teretz, and I saw also the teretz to this question. I also saw in the Sefer Beichia from HaRav going to Rebbe Horowitz Shlita. I saw he says a teretz to this question. And he's nokat a Shaloh HaKodesh. The Shaloh says, why is Avelus b'Shabbos Asr b'Shabbos? Why is Avelus b'Shabbos Asr? It's on Shabbos, so therefore it's not a Shavuot Tais, it should be Asr. But the Shaloh says another reason. Really, Avelus b'Shabbos would be mut. But when Kol HaMesabel al Yerushalayim is Ki'ilu Bana. So when you build a Beis HaMikdash, when you cry about the Beis HaMikdash, it's as if you built it. So if you build the Beis HaMikdash through Avelus, the halacha is in Perek Aleph Mehilchas Beis HaBchira, the Rambam passes. And it's a Gemara in Boinen Beis HaMikdash b'Shabbos v'Yom Tovim. So by being Mesabel al Yerushalayim, you're being Ki'ilu Bono, Zok the Shaloh. Therefore, Avelus is Asar b'Shabbos. Avelus is Asar b'Shabbos because Binyan Beis HaMikdash is Asar b'Shabbos. There's no Avelus. We don't wallow in sorrow over the Beis HaMikdash. We're constructive. When we're being Mesabel al Yerushalayim, we are in essence building the Beis HaMikdash. And if you build the Beis HaMikdash, so then Asar b'Shabbos v'Yontif. And that's why Avelus is not mut. Im Kain Lefida Shaloh, we can say, that's why Yosef had the liberty to be Mesabel al Yerushalayim. because you can't build a Beis Hamikdash before it was built and destroyed. When there was a Beis Hamikdash standing, and the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so Kol HaMesabel al Yerushalayim, I am now contributing to the future rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. But before this man, when there is even a Metzius of Beis Hamikdash, you can't have a Kol HaMesabel's Kilubana. So then Kol HaMesabel will be mutter. The only reason Kol HaMesabel is also is Kilubana. Yosef HaTzadik was able to be Mesabel. Because the only reason you're not allowed to be Mesabel is because it's Kilu Abinyan, which we'll come back to. Al Derech Zeh, I wanted to explain that Droshes Chassam Sofer that was quoted in the Hagdama Shir. Maybe that's the reason Asarah B'Tevis is different. If you look, let's think for a second about why we fast on a Tainus. The Chassam Sofer says in a drosha, you know why we really fast on Tanesim? Just like we celebrate Pesach, there's an Afein Hoya Boisa Nes, and those who had to do with the Nes are mechuyev to celebrate the Nes of Mitzrayim. Those who had to do with Hanukkah have to celebrate Hanukkah. Those who had to do with Purim have to celebrate Purim in the Persumenis. Zok Chassam Sofer, the same is true on Tanesim. Anybody who was affected by the Churban HaBayis has to keep the Avelus on the Bayis. That really parenthetically would answer for us why Noshim are Mechuyavos in the Avelus of the 9 days. And Tisha B'Av, it's really a mitzvah saseh shazman groma. Not eating meat and drinking wine in the 9 days is not an isser. It's a kiyum of Avelus Hamikdash. If it's a kiyum and it's only tied to that time, it should be a mitzvah saseh shazman groma. So why are Noshim Mechuyavos? The teretz is it's like an afein hoya bois hanes in a funny way. Just like you're mechuyev to be mafarsim the nes, you're mechuyev to be mesabel al Yerushalayim. So the Chassam Sofer, chayiv odom liroy says atzmoi ki'ilu hu yotzami Mitzrayim. And when you celebrate Pesach, you have to celebrate it as if you went out. Kol, whoever keeps the Tanesim has to be chayiv odom liroy says atzmoi as if he was part of the Churban. And it's mashmin the Rambam Perik hey mehilchas tainus halacha al. That's really the yisoid of Tanesim. It's ki'ilu, it happened to us, and that's what we have to do. So we're reliving the Churban when it's happening, and just through reliving the Churban, we're being mispalel and being misana and doing tshuva, and through that we're rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash. So the essence of Tanesim is a chayiv odom lirois with an afein hoya bois hanes. And they, like we said over to answer the shalos, what the shalos is saying, that when you misabel al Yerushalayim, it's ki'ilu bona, and that's why you can't do it on Shabbos, because you can't be ki'ilu bona. What was Asarah B'Tevis? Asarah B'Tevis is distinct and separate from other Tanesim. Tisha B'Av, the Churban already was taking place. Shivasar B'Tammuz, the city was breached. So the Churban already commenced. So it's an avelus that we want to do tshuva, that it should be rebuilt. Because whereas if at the time when the Churban was taking place, Asarah B'Tevis was pre the Churban. Asarah B'Tevis is when when the city was surrounded and they were fortifying the city to attack the city. But it was pre-Churban. So it's not about ki'ilu bana. It's ki'ilu we're being misbalel that it shouldn't be nechrav. We're in a position of where we're trying to do protection. We're trying to do preventative to be able to prevent the Churban. That's what Asarah B'Tevis is. So Asarah B'Tevis in the gather of Kol HaMesabel is not a mesabel, it's a tainus of tefillah. And if it's a tainus of tefillah that the Churban shouldn't happen is not Kol HaMesabel, is ki'ilu bana. It's ki'ilu a preservation that we should have a Beis Hamikdash and we should be protected by the Eibishter. Im Kain, that's mutter b'Shabbos. According to the Shalah, the only reason it's not mutter b'Shabbos is because Avelus not mutter, it's kilubana. Mashen came, this halacha would not be kilubana because Asarah b'tevis is a preventative. Now, possibly we could understand the beginning of the Or Sameach. Givaldik in the Welt, Remei Simcha. Remei Simcha says the words Be'etzem Hayoim Hazeh might have a different connotation, and maybe that could be read into the Avodram. Every Tainus really falls at night, just like Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av. We were makel, the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah on Shavuos B'Tammuz that you don't have to fast at night. But really, it's a Yom Tainus the whole day, from the night, like every Jewish calendar day begins at night. But there's a kula, we don't do it at night. Zokter Be'esimcha, Be'etzem HaYoim Hazeh comes to tell us, Asarah B'Tevis is only in the day, not at night. If Asarah B'Tevis is in the day, and it's exclusive in the day, and not at night, Be'etzem Be'itzumoy Shel Yoim, Etzem HaYoim always means from Amud HaShachar, like the pasuk that it says by the Minchas HaOmer. Etzem is the B'chir, the B'char HaYoim, the Ramban says many places in Chumash. So it denotes daytime. Asarah B'Tevis would take place in the day, not at night. So it's not at night and we will makel. It was never in its original intent in the night and only in the day. Im Kain Zokter Mei Simcha, that's why it could be Chal on Shabbos. The reason it could be Chal on Shabbos is because other Tanesim can't be Chal on Shabbos because you would have to fast the whole Shabbos. If Asarah B'Tevis would be Chal on Shabbos, we would be able to eat at night. And according to the Mabit, he quotes a Mabit, you'd be able to fast on Shabbos if you were Yotzi, you're eating at night. So to Mei Simcha in a very sharp way, that's why that would be the halach. I'm bringing out the Mei Simcha. What is the reason that Asarah B'Tevis would only be a daytime kindness and not a night kindness? Why would it be different than Shivasa B'Tammuz and Asarah and Tisha B'Av? And Asarah B'Tevis would be exclusively in the day and not at night. Ulai, and here comes out my Chassidish neshama. Maybe since it's a tefillah, and it's a tefillah, not an avelus, tefillah sometimes needs clarity. We say, Vemunoscha is baleilos, toiv lohoidois lashem, ulazamushum chelyen lahagid ba boiker chazdecha. Boiker symbolizes clarity. Night symbolizes questions and fright. And that's when you need emunah. For tefillah, sometimes there's a tefillah of azuz, of gaiva, of connection to the Eibishter. And that happens in the day. Tanesim is avelus, could be connected to night. Tefillah of before, it's so clear what's happening. You want to make sure that we're protected. Turning to the Eibishter to be protected is connected today. And that's why Asarah B'Tevis is in the day. And if it would be Chal on Shabbos, we'd be able to be mispalel to the Eibishter, and the tainus would have to take place in the day. And that would be the svara of the Be'etzem Hayoim, the Be'etzem Hayoim Hazeh. So let us all Tanesim and Avelus, but Tanesim is Tefillah. Tefillah is being mispalel. I'll just fear ice. Many years ago, I was in the home of Maran Rabbeinu Reb Chaim Kanievsky Shluta. And I'm not going to go through the question, and I asked him a question. And I asked him a question which the crux of the question was, when the Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi comes down, Eishmin HaShamayim, as was Mavuir in the Gemara in several places in Shas. So I had a certain question that you'd have to go through a chinuch, and it would be a new mizbeach when the Beis Hamikdash is built, the third Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, we'd have to be machanech the Beis Hamikdash. And there's going to be certain procedures that says in the Gemara, Masech Shvuos, Daf Tesvav, that you'll have to be machanech. And I asked him a very complicated question. And he was quiet for approximately a minute. And then he looked up at me and he said, I think, ich tracht, as a Beis Hamikdash, Mizbeach sheyoyred eish mit hashamayim.
How are you? Thank you for calling me back.
We would not have the eish The Beis
30
Hamikdash of the
seconds.
Beis Eish
Have something to
has chinuch because it comes down Eish min Hashamayim. So I asked him, maybe the pshat would be according to the Sfas Emes in Parshas Dvorim, that the Sfas Emes tells us that Kol Misha Lo Nivne Beis Hamikdash B'Yamav Kilu Nechrava B'Yamav. So the Sfas Emes asks, could one say that Lo Nechrava, all the dairis of tzaddikim till now, they were Kilu Nechrava, and our small dar of Ikasa the Mashiach will be the Nivne? The Sfas Emes says no. Kol Misha Lo Nivne B'Yamav. With the days of yearning for the Beis Hamikdash, they are being boina Beis Hamikdash. And that Beis Hamikdash will come down big for the Mashiach. And it'll come down for us. They'll be Zeicha to the Nivna, will be Zeicha to see the Beis Hamikdash that was built from the Tfilis and the Gaguim and the yearning of all the generations. And that's what we have. So I asked the Reb Chaim Kanievsky Shlita, maybe that's why we won't need Chinuch. And I said the words, Sekumt Arop an Alta Mizbeach, from the Nivne Biyomov of the Tzadikim. He said, I'm not saying what the reason is. He said to me, Ich sag nicht the Sibe. Eish min HaShamayim darf nicht haben Chinuch. What comes down, Eish min HaShamayim won't need Chinuch. That's all, B'mehera. The Tainesim will turn in, Yogain L'Simcha, Ma'afela L'Argadol. And we'll all be Zeichem Etz Hashem to see that Mizbeach Eish min HaShamayim, our tefillas should be preventative. Our tefillah should help those who need help, protect those of us who need to be protected. All of us need to be protected. To see the etzem hayoyim hazeh, lahagid ba'boiker chazdecha, we should be able to see the Eibishter. We're all right now seeing the Eibishter, feeling along with him. The Schus HaTorah. I thank Yedidi Reb Hagoyin Reb Shlomo Gadesman and everybody who arranges this shiurim. It's a gewaldige Kiddush Hashem. Yishvol b'zeichem etz Hashem psuris, toivus, yeshuvas v'nachal.